Now, Jake, it would be remiss of us to not talk about koalas this week. You happy to dive into that one a little bit?
100%.
All right.
Shallow Wade.
Let's do the Shallow Wade. Hit the Shallow Wade music. Shallow Wade. Now, we've got so koala. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say that Friendly Geordies is a particularly active person in this particular regard. He's the one who has instigated. Him and his team of people and his army of followers have instigated over the last few months the hashtag koala killer for Gladys Berejiklian, and sort of saying, she due to the fact of all this land clearing, particular populations of koalas are at risk, particularly here in New South Wales, where there's only a limited number of thriving populations. Yeah, thriving populations. And it's certainly endangered down here. So koala killer has been hashtagged and trending on Twitter for a long time, thanks to Friendly Geordies and his particular army of followers. And this week it all sort of started to come into the mainstream media a little bit, didn't it? Tell us a little bit about what's happening here. It's got John Barilaro. I love a bit of John Barilaro. He's a Barilaro laughs.
You know that John Barilaro loves a bit of John Barilaro too. Look, it's really interesting. This is all around the state environmental planning policy.
Yep.
And essentially, there are provisions within the state environmental planning policy, which I'll refer to herein or heretofore as the SEP. Because it's so it just sounds so great. The SEP.
It does. The SEP rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it sure does. Except for the P. It's a really hard P.
Yeah. Well, there's no tongue in P.
That's true. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, it's such an interesting thing. So the SEP has some provisions in it that require for any time where a deforestation is likely to occur because of some form of development, that the deforestation must have some form of koala planning in it.
Yes.
Now, there's huge amount of misinformation, particularly created by the Nationals and by national sympathisers, by farmers groups, by development organisations around this topic. Suggesting, hey, for farmers you can't do your fencing, rebuilding. Not true.
Yeah, right.
If you're going to
sort of a bit of a doom and gloom situation. They're sort of painting this picture that everything's going to fall apart.
They're straw manning it to the extreme, and the straw man is not holding up.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting thing. But essentially, it all came to a head. After essentially the Nationals have been debating the SEP for a significant amount of time, trying to remove these provisions around the koala. The koala planning studies that are being required as part of major developments. And it all came to a head this week when essentially John Barilaro, the Nationals leader, after meeting with his colleagues, said, look, we are not going, if this SEP seems to be going ahead and we don't like it, we are not for it. It is going to crush us. It is going to crush our voter base. We're not doing it. We are going to remove ourselves from the coalition, and we're going to go sit on the opposition. We're going to sit on the crossbench, and we are not going to vote on any legislation. We'll retain our seats and we'll retain our portfolios as ministers, as cabinet ministers, but we're not going to do anything for the coalition.
And then Gladys, she went and rolled out the big guns. She went stocked up. She was like Neo from the Matrix. She just opened up her coat and went, look at my weaponry, right? I might rephrase that.
No, it was very good. Open up the coat filled with guns and
filled with guns, and she called their bluff. She said, "Right, off you go."
She really did. She essentially said, "Look, I'm prepared to go into Government House." She actually made a booking at Government House for the next day to speak to the Governor General
next morning. She was like, "You've got until Friday morning."
You've got until 9 a.m. Otherwise, I booked an appointment to go and speak to Government House to swear in a new government. So it's up to you guys. If you're going to do this, if you're going to continue to play this line, we'll go and kick you out of your ministries. We'll go and sort out a new coalition, and look. Essentially, what you said is we are too busy governing. We've got other more important things on our hands to deal with this feckless little stupidity.
Yeah.
And
okay, so he's in a bit of trouble, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we end up having a conversation at the end of next week that there's no more John Barilaro, right? I wouldn't be surprised about that. Who knows how that's going to play out? But he certainly didn't do the Nationals any favor. Is he a National? Is that what he is?
Well, he's the leader of the National. He's also the deputy premier.
He hasn't done their image any favors. I did a lot of comments this week about the fact that it was an odd hill to try and die on.
Which is a saying. I love that saying. I use that saying quite often
to your kids all the time.
No, not necessarily to my kids, but it's one because invariably when you do lots of negotiating, you do need to sort of what is the thing that you cannot go past? What is your upper limit in terms of your of the things that you can negotiate on? What is the hill that you are going to choose to die on? Is it going to choose to die on that hill? Yeah. Right. So it is one of those great sayings. But yeah, this is such an interesting case. But essentially, as soon as Gladys Berejiklian made this ultimatum, Barilaro backed down.
Yep.
Almost immediately, he was back in the fold on before 9 a.m. on Friday morning.
Yep.
And it was all all honky dory. Everyone was back in their happy faces.
Look, I do encourage you to check out Friendly Jordies in the sense of this koala killer situation. He has been instrumental in this whole situation of bringing these sort of policies and things to the forefront and letting you know about the MPs and things who are actually fighting for these koalas as well, and making sure that expansions of quarries or buildings of quarries and things like that don't actually go ahead. Whether or not you like Friendly Jordies, that's totally on you, but he does certainly have some information which you might not get from the mainstream media. So I dare you to. Well, I'd just encourage you to check that one out.
I dare you to. I dare you to. I love it. Yeah, look, such an interesting case. I have heard some commentary in the media, unnamed sources, as they often
I love unnamed sources
in these cases, who have referred to John Barilaro's leadership as untenable.
Untenable. That's some big words.
Yeah.
Some big words.
So
yeah, look, I don't know. He's a bit of an odd character. I've read a few articles about him. He's a bit of a chef, apparently. He likes to cook up some seafood and things like that. So when he does his interviews, you go to his house. But he does work very hard. We know that he's away from home for 200 days a year and all this sort of stuff. But it's so again interesting that you would work that hard and then not play along with the politics that you've chosen to play along with.
Or keep it in the party room.
Yeah,
like this is one of those things. The Nats are notorious for this. It's like it's a 6 monthly cycle. 6 months ago we were talking about how Barnaby had decided that it was time to do another challenge.
Yeah,
and gotten his mates together and he was ready to roll Michael McCormack. Yeah. And 6 months later we've got Barilaro, the Barilaro laughs, who's just decided, look, that's it. This is the hill that we're going to die on.
I know.
And
so bizarre.
And decided to roll essentially the coalition.
And even if it is about him, like even if it's about him and his ego, it's still just tremendously bad timing. Like even if it's just about getting noticed and getting some airtime and things like that, to do that at the moment while no one is talking about that in the media is such an odd thing. And if they are talking about it, this comes off the back of the bushfires where everyone was very koala focused and everyone was very much like, gosh, we need to make sure that we're rehabilitating these koalas and that we're looking after their habitats. To come out and say, well, look, we're actually not even going to worry about that and we want all these things to change is anyway.
And one thing I would like to say, because I live in regional Queensland and I do mix with a lot of country folk and it's not at all uncommon to have these types of conversations about land clearing, particularly farmers of graziers that own enormous swaths of land, and they do quite often feel that the laws that that the city people make are quite onerous and can invariably add to their expenses because of the things that they must do in order to just get their job done. They're making essentially the city folk are making their lives harder, more expensive, etc. Essentially for their own benefit. When it is the farmers that essentially have to bear the brunt of the legislation that's made. But it is one of those things that it's largely the misrepresentation of those laws that of the SEP, of the State Environmental Planning Policy, that was actually probably feeding the backlash against the SEP instead of the actuality of the actual legislation.
All right. Well, we'll keep everyone updated on whether or not we still have koalas this time next week. Koalas, whether or not we still have koalas, or whether or not we still have John Barilaro laughs.